and I have Welcome to Media Path. I'm Louise Palanker.
And I'm Fritz Coleman.
You know what we try to do is every week on the show we interview fascinating folks to help steer you towards content that you will enjoy. In the course of our careers, Fritz and I have conducted thousands of interviews, and never will we match the resume of our guest, Larry Grobel. Both in quantity and in quality, Larry's catalog of phenomenal interviews is vast and substantive. He's written for the New York Times, Newsday, Rolling Stone, Playboy, and many more. Plus, Larry has 29 books to his credit, just waiting for you to tap buy now with one click on Amazon. But before we get to Larry, first, Fritz, what have you been enjoying this week?
All right, well, you know I like true stories, and I'm very forgiving of bad presentations of true stories as long as I learn something about the true story itself. And this is a good presentation of a true story. It's called The Dropout. It's on Hulu. It's a limited series. The series is currently 4 episodes in. It'll be 8 total. The new one drops this Thursday and every Thursday until they get to 8. It's based on the ABC News podcast, The Dropout, hosted by Rebecca Jarvis. She's the ABC News Chief Business Technology and Economics Correspondent. It's the story of Elizabeth Holmes, a brilliant young woman who dropped out of Stanford University to do a Silicon Valley startup called Theranos. Now, Theranos tried to develop a way to streamline blood tests, analyzing a drop of blood for over 100 medical qualities, and doing it with a very small machine that ultimately would be placed in drugstores around the country. It could transform the medical industry. Holmes' dark genius was her ability to sell the concept to investors and software scientists and other tech giants. She was a master salesman and cheerleader who started a company, hired hundreds of people, and gathered millions of dollars in investment money before the device was even made to work. It was a brilliant rise and a spectacular fall. At her peak, she was the world's youngest female billionaire, amassing a fortune of $4.5 billion. She was touted as the next Steve Jobs. She bamboozled former political titans and industry executives to join her board. This was all done before the machine even worked, before it passed any proof of performance tests. It all came crashing down when the company was caught faking test results. She went on trial. She was convicted of wire fraud and attempted wire fraud. She's awaiting sentencing right now, could get up to 20 years in prison. It's a spectacular look at how the manic competition of Silicon Valley intersects with manic personal ambition. Again, episode 5 drops Thursday. It's really good. And Amanda Seyfried is the actor, and she not only looks identical to Elizabeth Holmes, she does a great job.
So did you get the sense that she actually thought this would work and kind of like launched herself into sort of fake it till you make it type of arc?
That's precisely the phrase I would use, fake it till you make it. She didn't have it worked out yet, but she was very enterprising and very driven and would not fail. And so she stumbled over herself. They faked a couple of tests on the way up, and that's what did it. You know, it torpedoed her ambition.
Blood on the saddle, blood on the ground.
See what I'm saying?
Yep. So it is award season, Fritz, and I love to get myself as prepared as possible for Oscar night by attempting to see nominated movies before the TV show. So if you are aiming to do the same, note that the Oscars will be held on Sunday, March 27th. Every year, more and more films are available for streaming at home, and we can get our work done without worrying about parking. Fritz, I'm going to read the nominees, let alone babysitting, but the popcorn, the home, I just haven't figured out a way to get.
Well, you and I used to do the thing where you Xerox the sheets and we'd do this whole thing. It was a big deal.
We'd have contests and, awards and prizes. So I'm going to read the nominees for the Best Picture, and we can both see how we're coming along in terms of our viewing, all right, in preparation for the Oscar night. They now nominate, I think, 10. I'm not good at math, but this looks like
too
a lot.
many, too.
Best Picture nominees are Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, West Side Story, and Drive My Car. So I'm going to talk about Drive My Car for a moment because I was unfamiliar with this title and I watched it over the weekend. Don't be confused. Drive My Car is not, in this case, a Beatles song, a video game, or a Fast and Furious sequel. It's a very long and lovely Japanese film, which may or may not be the best fit for you. I'll fill you in so that you may decide for yourself. Yield for metaphors and subtext. The film is called Drive My Car. Drive is a metaphor. Car is a metaphor. The road is a metaphor. The journey is a metaphor. This is a story about actors and scripts. Acting and scripts are metaphors. The dialogue and the storylines in the scripts are metaphors. The scenes in the film are achingly long, a metaphor for time, a metaphor for longing, a metaphor for perspective. I guess. Drive My Car is about a stage actor married to a screenwriter who composes stories out loud during and after sex. And just when you were about to toss that bridal shower gag gif penis-shaped pen, not so fast. For reasons that will reveal themselves along the 3-hour-long road of this film, the actor has a driver who takes him back and forth to rehearsals while he listens to his wife's voice on a cassette tape running lines for him from Chekhov's Uncle Vanya. The cassette tape, his wife's voice, Uncle Vanya, say it with me, all metaphors. Do we learn more about these people's fears, guilts, longings, hopes, and histories as the film progresses? Yes. Do we get to experience the beauty of Japanese lives and vistas? Yes. Is there a car and a lot of driving? Yes, lots and lots of driving. There's also lots of talking, and it is entirely possible that the English subtitles did not do justice to the Japanese dialogue. See if it sounds like the type of film that you would enjoy. It's 3 hours long, and we found it on Apple pay-per-view. Fritz,
yeah, they could have excised an hour out of it. It took me to the last 5 minutes to understand that the Uncle Vanya text was very parallel to the lives of the two people who had suffered the loss in their lives. It was too long. It was, I didn't even get it. I didn't get what the point of the movie halfway in, and I said, I've got another half of a movie to go through. I just didn't get it. And it might have been a cultural divide for me. But I was fascinated by the multitasking of creating a script while you're having sex, because that takes a power of concentration
for sure,
that I don't have.
It was impressive, yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I would like to introduce our guest. Larry Grobel is a master interviewer who has written for the New York Times, Newsday, Rolling Stone, Entertainment Weekly, Reader's Digest, Parade, Playboy, Cosmopolitan, and Writer's Digest, among many, many more. His 29 books include Conversations with Capote, The Houstons, Talking with Michener, The Art of the Interview, Madonna Paints a Mustache, greatest book title ever, in my opinion, and Conversations with Brando. He's written 49 books. You can check them all out on his writer page, author page on Amazon.com. Larry has been called by Playboy the interviewer's interviewer, by Joyce Carol Oates the Mozart of interviewers, and by J.P. Donleavy the most intelligent interviewer in the United States. No pressure on Fritz and I interviewing the interviewer's interviewer. Welcome, Larry. And I want to welcome you and open by asking you this question. You've had the opportunity to interview interviewers as well. Tell us about comparing notes with Alex Haley.
Alex Haley is very special. He was a very, very sweet man. And he did the interviews with Miles Davis. He did George Lincoln Rockwell. He did about 5 or 6. Those two are some of his famous. Oh, and of course Malcolm X.
Yeah.
And he wrote the book Malcolm X, and then he wrote Roots. And he had lived in as a sailor. He was on a ship, so when he was writing Roots and he was trying to get to the certain sections of it when they were crossing the ocean, he couldn't write it. He ended up going on a boat, and he went underground and he stripped himself naked and laid down and to see what it was like for his characters to do it. Anyway, Alex, I did a television interview with him that about 3 hours, 4 hours long, and it was a Playboy cable thing, and it lasted 8 minutes when we cut it. But it was just fascinating because we did share so many stories. We had so much, we understood, because the interviews that he and I did, you don't see it happening too much anymore. Playboy is gone, and they don't give you that kind of time. I spent 9 months with Barbra Streisand, over a period. And I did with Brando, I went to his island for 10 days, and I could have stayed for 50 days. It was up to me when I wanted to leave, and that you don't get that anymore, I once turned down Sophia Loren because Playboy asked me to do it, but she only had to 6 hours, 2 hours a day for 3 days before she had to leave. And I said it was too short a time. Now, if you got 6 hours with Sophia Loren, you'd make a movie out of it, you know?
Exactly.
So, things have changed. So, I mean, with Haley, it's just, I show that tape. I show about 5 or 6 of the tapes I've done, the interviews, when I go to health spas and things like that, and resorts, and people love to see these things. And Alex is one of the most touching ones of the ones I did, because he also told stories. See, the difference between someone who understands the medium of TV is that you got to have short bites, and the thing you do when you do a long interview is you have forever in your mind. It's only over, like even Streisand said, I said, how long do we have? She says, well, it's over when you're finished. So she was allowing me 52 hours of conversation, which is what I had with her over time.
Do you think that amount of time was provided because our attention was more focused to a few locations, so that everyone was going to be reading that Playboy interview? But now we have so much variety in what we could select to consume. That
you have a variety, but you still will read the New Yorker if you want to read a longer piece, a more in-depth piece. The Atlantic. There are magazines that are still not very few. I mean, I feel I've basically stopped being a magazine writer. I just came across. I did an interview with Tony Bennett. It wasn't an interview. I was writing his book. He asked me to write his book, so I worked with him, and then he just decided he didn't want to do it. And I went up to San Francisco once, and he forgot that I was even coming. And I realized, maybe his dementia had begun earlier than we think. I had all this. I put together a 12,000 word interview with Tony Bennett. I've never shown it to anybody. I've never published it. And I just sent something to the New Yorker about it, that I have this. Whether anyone wants it or not, who knows? It's very hard to get that kind of time with someone. But I still think we could read long form. James Michener. I asked him, how did you know to write Hawaii and to write these books, Centennial? And they were 800 to 1,000 pages long. And he said, I knew because it was like 1951, 52. He said, because I saw television was coming along, and I saw people, watching something for an hour, and I knew that they would want more. That was his reasoning to do these. And he was right, because he sold millions of copies. But today it's the opposite. I think it's, we don't know how many long novels are coming out, and how many people are buying them, and how many people are actually reading them.
When you make a TikTok video that's 3 minutes long and you're told it's too long.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I could figure out a good TikTok video to do.
I mean, you could do your shorter poems of TikTok.
Yeah.
People would be very amused by that.
I could.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk to you about the Playboy interviews, Larry. This used to be the most prestigious interview any famous person ever did, because nowhere else did their true selves appear, and they express their true opinions about stuff, political or otherwise. I mean, there are famous Playboy interviews that affected careers, like Jimmy Carter admitting that he might have lusted for women other than Rosalind in his heart, and just that very honest admission by a typical American male made people's heads explode, and people still talk about it. So talk about how you got your first Playboy interview.
Okay. Also, if we get to Bobby Knight and Jesse Ventura, that might be of interest.
I'm going to build up to that. We have to do foreplay before we.
We're going there.
The first Playboy interview was this. I was out. I came out to. I was in Africa for 3 years in the Peace Corps. I traveled about 9 months or almost a year around the world. I get back. I go to New York. What am I going to do? Right. I mean, so I said, well, I'll go to Newsday, see if I can, write some freelance stories for them. They just were starting out with this magazine called LI Magazine. So I ended up writing a couple of dozen stories, articles. Then I came out here just to be a novelist, stop my journalism. And they called me up. They said, we figured out a way to get off Long Island. And the interviews with household names. Really? Who are you thinking about? Mae West. I said, is she still alive? Yeah. How do we know? You're the one, that has to find out. So anyway, so
check her pulse.
I did it, and that led to Lucille Ball and Carol Burnett and Warren Beatty, people that didn't talk to many people. They respected Newsday. So as I'm doing this, I have an hour with Lucille Ball, or 2 hours, or 3 hours was the maximum I ever did with anybody. Because how many questions do you need for a 3,000 word interview, in a sense, or 1,500 word, whatever it was? But I was interested in the form. Suddenly I'm with these people and I'm thinking, what would it be like if I could come back tomorrow? And, after we talk about it, what if I could come back for a few more days and dig deeper and deep? When will they throw me out, basically? How much? So I looked around. I said, where could I do an interview like that? Just to test to see what it would be like. And it was Playboy. It was the only obvious thing. How do you get into Playboy? I'm new. I'm just starting out in my writing career. Playboy's established and they only have 12 interviews a year. So they have their interviewers already, I'm sure, like Alex Haley. So I thought of a way in. And that was, I had to convince Newsday's editor, and there wasn't much convincing, to let me do an interview with Hugh Hefner for Newsday, for the LA magazine. Mm-hmm. And they said, okay. I then get in touch with Playboy's publicist, and they said, okay. So they set this thing up, and I really prepared. I was, I knew I just had questions. I wasn't going to be a softball interview. I wanted to impress Hefner so I could, get in. So anyway, we go. The interview took 7 hours the first day, and he invited me back. He took me up to his bedroom to show me his rotating bed, that kind of stuff. But, it was like I did a pretty good job with this 3,000 word piece. And what happened was that when that came out, Hefner didn't show up for the annual dinner with advertisers that was at the Playboy Club in Century City. But the publicist called me and said, instead of him showing up, he's printing out thousands of copies of this interview you did with him. And that's his statement. That's who he is. And I said, wow, that's amazing. Wow. So then they said, would you like to come to the dinner, to the luncheon? Arthur Kretschmer will be there. Now, Arthur Kretschmer was the editorial director of Playboy, the number one guy in the magazine, right? And so I said, well, of course I'll come. And I had a portfolio with me. Everybody's going for the one thing. I'm going there to seriously talk to this man and see if I can talk him into letting me try to be a Playboy interviewer. So the publicist, the Playboy was Don Rogers was his name. He goes over to, after Kretschmer spoke and everything, and they talked. He brought him over to my table. I couldn't believe that. And I said, Mr. Kretschmer, I said, look, this is what I do. This is who I've done. And he said, well, I like the one you did with Hef. I said, great. I said, but I think I can do it for Playboy. So he told me who the editor of Playboy would be, Barry Golson. Said, give him a call. So I called him and I said, Arthur Kretschmer told me to call. So of course he took my call. And he says, who are you working on? So I said, well, I'm trying to get to this, to this, to this. I mentioned 15 names. One of them was Barbra Streisand. Well, Streisand was like Beyonce now, or bigger. Mm-hmm. I mean, Streisand was like really the biggest star. And Streisand never talked to anybody. So I started in trying to get to her. And it took me over a year, I think, to finally get her to agree. And the reason she agreed was she was making that movie, A Star Is Born. Frank Pearson was the director. And he published an article in New York Magazine called My Battles with John and Barbara. John Peters was her boyfriend at the time. And he was producing. So this was, and Chris Christopherson was the star opposite her in A Star Is Born. So she wanted revenge. She was angry that he talked negatively about her and about her son or something he wrote. So I got to know Frank Pearson, by the way. I liked him. But anyway, I get a call from her publicist, Lee Salters, who says, Barbara would like to see you. I said, okay. I said, is this, work or is this just a meeting? I didn't know. So she just said, just be there, Tardeo Studio. So that's what I did. I didn't prepare to do the interview. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I go to the Tardeo Studios and I'm waiting in the waiting room, and I'm waiting 10 minutes, a half hour maybe. And then here comes Barbra Streisand through the door. Behind her are 5 people. This is her entourage, right? Whoever they are. And she just comes right at me, right to my face. And she says, why does the press hate me? First question, first meeting, not hello, Larry. We're both from Brooklyn. Nice to meet you.
Like you can answer on behalf of everyone.
Yeah. So I said, I took a step back, I didn't expect the question. but I answered it honestly. And I just started listing all the reasons I was disliking her for keeping me waiting, for doing this, for doing that, for making the whole thing. Well, behind her 5 people went, yes, they gasped. And I realized, oh, right, I'm in the presence of a queen and, I shouldn't be doing this. Anyway, she looked at me and she said, come with me. And we go into the studio and she said, we're going to watch a screening of A Star Is Born. And she's going to play with the music. She moves things up and down, whatever. And it was fascinating to watch her work and to also sit there with her and watch this thing. But I was so nervous about it because I thought, I don't lie well. My face displays what I think. And if I don't like this movie and I'm going to blow the interview, right? with her. So anyway, we watched this whole thing and I didn't really care for the movie that much, to be honest. But I'm sitting there thinking, oh, gee, what's going to happen? The lights come on. She turns to me. We're the only 2 people in this theater. And we're in these like red leather seats, she turns to me and goes, well.
Oh my God.
And I just looked at her and I said, you're going to make a lot of money.
Oh.
That was a great out.
Wasn't it?
It was a great out
work.
right
Well
there.
done.
I'm remembering that.
And then she came, and then what happened was she finally agrees to do the interview with me. She says, okay, call my publicist and he'll arrange it. And I said, no, Barbara. I have been talking to him for weeks, months, almost a year. I don't want to deal that way. If you want to do this, give me your phone number. And she looked at me and she was making a decision, one of those moments. And then she goes to a pad, a yellow pad like this one. And she, in the smallest little letters, she writes B and her phone number. And then she rips this piece off like this and hands me this little piece. So, okay, I had a phone number. So that's it. I called her directly and we started. And the first thing, I'm going on about this. This is maybe too long for you, but the first thing,
it's great.
First thing that Barbara wanted, she came down the steps. I'm in her house in Holmby Hills, and she comes down the steps with a document, and she hands it to me, and she says, "Okay, just sign this, and we'll get going." And I go, "Sign what? Right? What is she talking about?" And I look down and I see it says, "Dear Barbara," and at the bottom of the second page says my name. And I'm supposed to have written this letter and it's going to sign it. It's that her lawyer wrote. And it basically said that she would control the interview. She would keep all the tapes. She could edit the transcript to her liking and whatever, And I just looked at that and I said, Barbara, I said, I can't sign this. And she says, well, everybody does. And I said, yeah, but everybody's not doing an interview like this. I said, this is different. And, you have to understand that because I'm not a secretary. And what you're asking me to do is to perform an interview with you so you can edit it and make it the way you want it. That's not journalism. Mm-hmm. So she just hesitated a minute and then the phone rings. Well, she said, okay, she'll do it. But then the phone rings. And it's her lawyer, and he says he's calling. Did he sign? And no, she says he did. And then he starts yelling at her, and so she looks at me and hands me the phone. She says, "Here, you talk to him." And she hands me the phone, and I hear the lawyer. I don't know who the lawyer was. I hear the guy him screaming out, "I don't want to effing talk to him!" So I took the phone. I said, he doesn't want to talk to me. I gave it back there. She hangs up with him. 2 minutes later, John Peters calls. Did he sign? Then again, no, didn't. Okay. Another 5 minutes, Lee Salters calls. So, she had her whole entourage.
You disappointed a lot of people, Larry.
Oh, yeah. They were not happy with me. Marty Ehrlichman called. Marty was the one, actually. He screamed, I don't want to talk to him. And that was her manager. Anyway, so we sit down. I've never quite told this story before, this way. But when we finally start I take out the tape recorder, we go into her living room, and that's the only time we ever talked in that room. We always went into a different place, but this was by the fireplace. And then there's a living room, and we're sitting on the floor. And we'd start to talk, and the talk got a little bit sexual. Talk about sex. And it surprised me because in all the 150 to 200 questions I may have written, none of it was about that, right? And we just started talking on an intimate level in a way that made me think about this later. And I said to myself, what she was doing was committing to this interview because it was going to take a battle, and it was a battle, and they wanted to buy it off. I had, they offered me, John Peters called me to his office. They tried to buy it from me. They tried to get me to sign. So, all sorts of things happened. It's an amazing story, actually, the whole story. It's a whole chapter in my book, my memoir, You Show Me Yours.
Mm-hmm. Let me just stop you right there. This was, your interview with her was for Playboy?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Oh man, there was so much that happened during this time, that I was with her, that it was fascinating. And I also know Elliot Gould. Became a friend of mine before I even did Barbra. Mm-hmm. So, then I'd meet Jason when he was a boy, and it was like, in a lot of ways, like family. I was intersecting into different lives, and trying to figure things out.
I will say that your book, You Show Me Yours, is like a textbook on how to be an effective interviewer. And what you're describing is sort of a subsection of your book, which is don't allow the interview subject to control the circumstances. So Barbra tried to control you and wasn't successful. Vince Bugliosi, the prosecutor in the Charles Manson case, did exactly the same thing. And so did Alec Baldwin, although sort of time delayed, tried to control. But you can't allow that to happen as an effective interviewer. I learned so much from reading your book of the various suggestions, and that was one. Okay. Don't let the interview subject control it.
And it's hard because they're very intimidating people.
Yes, of course. There's big stars.
You have, the thing about doing interviews is, because I've taught it at UCLA I did 10 years. I was teaching the art of the interview, and I was bringing in everybody. Al Pacino came, Diane Keaton came, wow. Steve Martin, Jonathan Safran Foer. They loved him because he was like 25 years old. He wrote Everything is Illuminated, and he's like making millions of dollars, So there's hope for writers, once in a while. Yeah. So it was a really fascinating class to do. Farrah Fawcett, she came. It was one of those. But to try to teach how to do an interview, how do you duplicate what I've done? That's an impossible thing to answer. But I realize a lot of it has to do with confidence and personality. And I have friends who are very accomplished, but they are like A-level kinds of people. That is, they can only put strict attention on something when it's about them. And so, Ray Bradbury was like that in a way, these certain people I've met. Other people like Brando was not like that at all. Brando wanted to hear your stories. Mm-hmm. I mean, Brando, if it was up to him, I never would have done the interview with him. He just would have listened to me the whole time. It was a very different kind of person to be with. And Warren Beatty, he'll talk about certain things, but then boom, the women is not crazy about talking about. This is early, but also I learned, what you learn, Fritz, is that you learn when you can sort of broach certain subjects if you have a lot of time. For instance, with Beatty, we talked at his Beverly Hills. He had the top floor there for a small little 2-bedroom apartment, but that's where he did all his loving
at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, right?
Wilshire Hotel.
All his loving.
And when I went to see him. See, some of it had to do with just how you dress. I was in Africa for 3 years, so I was comfortable wearing these fugus, like it didn't look like anything normal. I'd go to see these people. I'd be wearing what I'm comfortable in because I'm going to be there for a while. I don't want to be uncomfortable. And they would always look at me with a smile or a little strange. With Beatty, it was like the minute he looked me up and down, it was like, come on in. It was like, it was just that thing. It could be the way you dress. It could be the way you smile. It's that. With Pacino, the first time I met him, it was in his apartment on 85th Street, was it? On Madison. And it was like Candace Bergen was the name on the mailbox. It was his place, but he kept making it was hers before. He never took it off, so you wouldn't know he was there. And And the first thing I did when we got in, he opened the door, and it was a small apartment, and he sort of, you could see he was nervous. He was really not wanting to do it because he never did an interview, even a small one. It was basically a virgin. And I just looked at him, and I knew immediately to take out my tape recorder immediately, because with Brando, he wouldn't let me turn on the tape recorder for 3 or 4 days. And that was torture, But so I took it out immediately, and he says, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "Trust me, Al." I said, "This is the best way to do this." And I said, "I just put this on. I'm going to put it aside, and we're just going to talk, and just, you'll forget it." And then he said, "Okay, I guess you know best." Why was he acting like that nicely to me? Because I had done Brando, and Al had never done an interview before. When that interview got published, I was working on Steve Martin. I was, getting for Playboy, and I get a call from the editor saying, "We got Al Pacino," and that was another big take, a big get. Like I did Patty Hearst too. There were certain big gets I've done for them, and that Al was a big one. Marlon, of course, was really a big one. And I had to go there on Thursday, and I'm in. It's Tuesday, and on Wednesday the Academy Library is closed. So I can't. At that time, I was doing my research there. I couldn't do any research. So I said, I can't do it. I can't do it that soon. So they said to me, "You don't understand." He said he'll only do it with the guy who did Brando.
Yeah,
I heard that. I mean, immediately I said, he doesn't know my name, but I'm the guy who did Brando. So I said to him, "Well, okay, but I want more money." Ta-da! A writer gets a moment, You don't get many of those moments, but once in a while. So, and they agreed, and I flew off to New York, and I went to see him. He opens the door. He's nervous. I put on the tape recorder like that. We go to sit down. First thing I notice is I sit in this a wicker seat, right? He had he had an old couch, a moldy yogurt was sitting on the top of the top of the couch, and I go to sit in this thing, and my ass goes right through the chair. It's a broken chair. And it's not that I was that heavy, I mean, it was just, So I went, "What?" I just started to laugh. And then, he's like jittery. So he says, "You want some coffee?" I said, "Okay." So we go in his little kitchen, and he lights the stove. And then, but he also sets the, what do you call it? The dish towel he had on fire.
Oh my God.
So now all of a sudden he's waving this dish towel and trying to get this fire. And I'm there 10, 15 minutes already. And I'm saying, "This is like my friends. I know this guy."
Yeah.
It was no longer, Michael Corleone, it was a different person. It was someone I could relate to.
It was a guy that was, you felt like, you had the footing because he didn't have his footing. So that you could make him feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and in your book, you talk, just to further comment on the dressing thing you were talking about, you really comment on your book, and it's really a revelation, where if you walk in there with a suit and tie, the person you're interviewing immediately feels uptight because you look uptight wearing a suit and tie. But if you go in with jeans and a sweatshirt, or as you say, that African piece you were wearing, people are immediately, they feel you're going to be open-minded and relaxed, and their responses might be open-minded or relaxed. So you have to think about what you're going to wear as well.
But my feeling too is that I think what I used to tell my students, because when I said one time we were going to go to the Playboy Mansion, they were going to interview Hefner. He agreed to do that. Or if Pacino came, he came 3 times. Anthony Kiedis came, from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I know they're going to be nervous. I say, "Look, you guys are going to get nervous." They say, "Well, they're all confident." What I said, "No, you'll see what'll happen." But the thing is, I want you all to dress the way you would dress if you were going to this person's house. I don't care what you wear. You can wear a sweatshirt, you can wear your pajamas, or you can wear a tie and jacket. Whatever you feel creates the respect you want to give to the person you're about to interview. You don't want to show disrespect. You don't, but you want to be comfortable, but you also want to show where the level of this can go. Mm-hmm. I remember when I went to see Louise Lasser. She was in that Mary Hartman, then she got caught with drugs. She was smoking marijuana or something, so she got put in jail. She came out. So I was supposed to be, I thought I was the first person who was going to be interviewing her since she got out. But as it turned out, it was in Malibu, and I get to the door, and a man in a suit and tie is just leaving. He was from the Wall Street Journal. And then she looked at me, and a giant sigh of relief. It was really interesting, Yeah, I could see, and so in that sense, yes, he was stiff, and I could see it, right away. Arthur Miller, the same thing. I went to see Arthur Miller, and a New York Times reporter was there, and he was also in a tie and a jacket and stuff. It's funny, but Gay Talese, you're familiar with Gay Talese, the writer? Mm-hmm. Well, Gay Talese is a really brilliant journalist. He's one of the best, and he was at UCLA at the Festival of Books one year, and I was there. I had an office at UCLA for 10 years. So I was walking down Bruin Walk, and he was coming up, and I see it's him. And I just said, Mr. Talese, listen, I said, I introduced who I am. I said, what I do, but I said, I'm teaching here, and I teach, your work. I said, I love some of your essays and he said, why don't we go have a coffee? So we go into the faculty, and we start talking, and we're getting along. And I said to him, what are you doing tonight? And he said, what are you thinking? I said, well, would you like to go see Al Pacino in Salome or at the Wadsworth Theater? And he looks at me, he says, it's Saturday night. You can't get tickets to that now. I said, no, I can. So he says, how? I said, because I know Al. So I call Al. I said, I need your 2 tickets. And talk about impressing Gay Talese, Yeah. But here's the thing: the Wadsworth Theater is at the Veterans Avenue. It's it's near UCLA. I live up in the Hollywood Hills. I'm dressed the way I'm dressed, which is probably like a sweater or whatever. So I said, okay, we can go. Maybe we'll have dinner first. He says, well, you're not going to go like that, are you? He says to me. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, yeah, I've only been to this thing about 8 times now. I've taken Joyce Carol Oates to it. I took Anthony Hopkins to it, so it was fun. I would take them backstage. They would talk to him. So Talese says, no, you're going out with me. He says, so I want you to wear a jacket and tie. I said, well, so I had to drive all the way home, put on. My wife says to me, what are you doing? I said, why are you here? I said, I have a date with Gay Talese.
There's a dress code.
Isn't that funny?
So you talk in your book about the experience that you had with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, and you kind of talk about how you're not really friends with the people that you're interviewing. It may feel like you're friendly, but you are lifelong friends with Al Pacino. So tell those stories and what happened and why and when you can trust friendship in well, you really don't know. You don't know what you can trust. I thought Dolly Parton and I were pretty solid. We were friendly, as with Goldie and Kurt, Diane Keaton, Elliot Gould, Pacino. I would say those were the major people that I would. Oh, and Farrah Fawcett, Mm-hmm. And I thought Kim Basinger for a while, and but she's an agoraphobic, so she doesn't like to go out. But we talk on the phone a lot. And then I think what happened is she couldn't wait to read my last book, which was that book, You Talking to Me. Yeah.
And she, I wrote about her twice in that book, and once was, very nice about animals and all her the other thing, and the other was how I noticed how women sometimes kind of exaggerate their relationship with their loved one. Mm-hmm. Angelina Jolie talked about Billy Bob Thornton, how she could never leave him, how she would, use a knife on him if he ever did anything. It was like amazing what they would say to me, and that would get into the interview. Nicole Kidman, talked about Tom Cruise to me. She came here in my room where I'm sitting right now. Nicole Kidman sat here. Angelina Jolie sat here. Kim Basinger did not come here, though. I went to her. But, and Kim, about Alec, what a great kisser he was, this and that. All 3 of these women got divorced from these men. It ended badly for the most part. And they went on to the next one. And so I was writing a piece about how I have never talked openly about my relationship with my wife, for instance. It's a private relationship, but I love her dearly. But I'm not going to say in print the way these women said about their men. And yet I'm still with my wife for so many years now, since the 70s. These women are not. So that was what I wrote that.
So what do you think they were trying to do?
Yeah, Kim read that and said, and she hasn't answered my phone since. I mean, I know she read the book, so I guess she was upset with that. But this is the problem. You have a problem when you meet these people because if a lot of people will want to be friendly when you have a lot of stories. Everyone loved to talk to me because of Brando. After I did Brando, boy, Lily Tomlin wanted to hear about Brando. Barbra Streisand wanted to hear about Brando. Everybody wanted to hear stories about him. So that was an interesting thing. So, people, you think you're becoming friendly with certain people, because it's a different level. You're not there to write about them now. But with me, I'm a writer. Mm-hmm. I do keep a journal. You know what I mean? And so this is, I don't know what's going to come or not going to come, but I don't, I just sort of see I'm living my life, whatever enters it.
Right.
And I became very close with Elliot Gould. And I heard him once in that book as well. He read the book and said, Larry, it wasn't David Carradine who gave me LSD for the first time. And he told me someone else. I said, Elliot, but you had told me that, but he was saying, and it wasn't Fox U-Bit. It wasn't Hershey's chocolate. It was Fox U-Bit or something, and when he was a kid doing an advertisement. So I felt badly about that. I don't want to make mistakes in my writing, and certain things you can correct or not. But he's a mensch, you know what I mean? He may not like something I wrote, or I might have got it wrong, but we're still friends. Mm-hmm. We talk to each other on the phone all the time.
But sometimes those guys will call you for having made a mistake, but you have the tape to prove that you were right.
Well, yes, that's happened. The Bugliosi, I mean, you brought up Bugliosi. I can go in so many directions now, it's like, because there's, what happened with Goldie and Kurt? That's a good story, but it's going to take me 5 minutes to tell it. Yeah. The same thing with Governor Ventura, and Bobby Knight. These are all great stories, but the problem is I don't know your timing. So I'm willing to go anywhere you want. I mean, you guys.
We can pick out certain stories to tell. I know they're in Larry's books if you want to read these books. But what the takeaway that I got from hearing about how people wanted to be your friend until they suddenly didn't like something maybe that you had written, it felt to me like, celebrities spend their lives very exposed. And the insecurity that sends them into public life seeking attention is the trait that makes negative attention almost unbearable. And that's why you encounter rage and control issues. And the story about your friendship with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell is especially haunting because when it came down to feeling pricked, they just circled their wagons. I mean,
well, what happened? Yeah, but you see, and again, that wasn't even my fault. See,
no, of course it wasn't.
It was like a Maupassant short story. It was like the story of the necklace. And I, in a nutshell, I'd interviewed Goldie for Playboy, and we became friends. And then I got to know Kurt. And Kurt was the opposite of Goldie. Goldie was a liberal. Kurt was a conservative. And every time we would have dinner, we liked each other. So we would arrange to have every few months they would come to our house or we would go to their house and have a dinner, and it was fun, and we bought Kate Hudson was a young girl then, and Oliver, I mean, they were under 10 probably. Mm-hmm. So we had this very nice kind of friendship that, I thought, and to the point that Goldie gave us, the key to her house in Malibu, stay with me when with my family, with my kids was small, says, oh, we're going away. You can, it was wonderful. It was a very nice kind of thing. And then, Entertainment Weekly asked me to do a story on Kurt Russell, and he was making that fire
Backdraft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I said, fine, I said, but I know him, I'm always upfront with these people, with editors, because I say, if you want a hatchet job on somebody, you hire somebody else. If you want something that's not going to be that, but it'll be more insightful because you'll get different kinds of stories that way, then I can do those stories. I only say that with a few people, but with them I did. Anyway, so Kurt and I, we go up in a plane. We said, let's have lunch in like near the Hearst Castle or something. Okay, let's fly the plane. So we go in the plane, and the two of us. He's a very good pilot. And then somewhere up in the air, he says, "Okay, you take control." I said, "What, are you kidding me?" He said, "Go ahead." And suddenly, I'm flying a plane for the very first time. And I say, "Okay," but and then we get there. We had a nice lunch. We get back. I write the article. I write about, going up in the plane. I do the whole thing. And the article comes out in Entertainment Weekly. Was part of Time magazine, so I never had, that was the only magazine I ever had to deal with more than one editor. Usually you and your editor hash things out, but that kind of a magazine, it used to go through, one editor would read it and then make his comments, another would read it, make her comments, and it went up to 3 or 4 people. So they kept sending me back versions of it, faxing me at the time, and I'm reading this thing and I say, no, you're taking out the S, and I'm writing back, it's one of those things. Mm-hmm. Well, when the thing finally comes out, which is, it's rushed, these things, once they decide to go with it, it's like the next week or something. So it comes out, and in the second paragraph, it said something like Kurt Russell, who is a B actor trying to become an A tier actor, and then something else. Well, I've never written in my life anything about A's and B's and ratings and tiers. It was like crazy. And I read, but it was already in print. There was so sandwiched in between my article. They did this, and he got. Now I never knew for sure that was it. But when it was our turn to see them, and I called, and Goldie didn't call me back, and then I tried again, and she again a week didn't call me back, and I said, well, it's funny they're not calling back. My wife says, oh, maybe it's because we set off the alarm in their house, because when we stayed there. I put in the wrong number, but I said, no, that was silly. We knew the password, so we were able to get through that one. But I said, maybe it was the article, but I didn't know. So after the third attempt, I said, well, I guess that friendship was not what I thought it was. I tell this story to Al Pacino. So Al goes to, about a year later, I don't know, half a year, Al goes to the Oscars or to the Golden Globes. And then he comes back, and I'm seeing him, and he says, hey, I met your friends yesterday. I said, who are my friends? He says, Goldie and Kurt. I said, oh, I don't know if they're friends anymore, Al. He says, why? What happened? I said, I don't know. I never found out. I suspect, but I don't know, so I can't really talk. So he says, I want you to do this. He says, I want you to write to Goldie, and I want you to say, I'm saying to you to write. It says, say, Al Pacino told you to do this. And say, you want to know why, what happened. So I wrote Goldie a note, and I said, look, Goldie, I said, Al's insisting I write this because he wants to know what happened, but I'm not sure exactly what happened between us, but perhaps you can answer. So she writes me back, and she says that the problem was, she said, is everything was great with us all the time, and then this article comes out, and she says, and I didn't recognize Kurt. I didn't recognize the man I'm living with. And if that's who you thought he was, then he was so hurt by it. I just thought we shouldn't be talking. And I said, well, listen, I wrote back. No, what I did is I wrote back, and I had my article still in my file, but I also had a copy of the magazine. And I sent it. I think she was in Hawaii at the time. And I sent this to her. I said, Goldie, I want you to look at, I'm sure you don't have that article anymore. So here's a copy, and then, but I want you to look at what I wrote and see if there's any difference in that. And she wrote me back, I'm down on my knees in apology. What you wrote was so beautiful, and I'm so sorry, but she didn't know. But what I'm saying is, why didn't you call? Why didn't you say, call me and say how you ignore, I didn't get it. And so, and then she says, oh, you must come for dinner. I said, all right. So we go, and my wife says, are you going to bring it up? And I said, well, yeah, I think we have to discuss it, but not at dinner. I said, let's just have a nice dinner. So we go and we sit down, and then Kurt brings it up quickly at dinner. And I said, Kurt, let's wait. Let's just have dinner first, and then we'll discuss this, because I have a lot to say about it, Mm-hmm. But it basically ruined the friendship. Even though we were back at dinner, we don't do that. We don't have that relationship we had once had. So what was that, a friendship, or was that, a detente kind of dilettantish kind of thing?
I think it was a friendship. I think the thing is about very famous people is like they live in that spotlight. And so it's like they burn more easily from the sun, right? So when they feel that burn, it's just excruciating, and they can't they can't tolerate, so they go back inside. But that was a friendship. It's just they're more vulnerable than we are. We don't walk down the street and people know I'm Goldie Hawn. Like, we don't have the experience that they have.
I've experienced that. Barbra Streisand told me once, walking on the beach, she says, someone walked right by her and said, "You look a lot like her." You won't expect to see her, right? I was with Diane Keaton, and I've been with a number of stars where we're walking somewhere and something happens. Diane Keaton was always the coolest. Anybody came up there, she would just disarm them. Goldie was pretty good at disarming too. Pacino jumped. One time a woman came out of a car. We saw him. We were walking just down in Beverly Hills, going towards Little Santa Monica in that area, and this woman came from behind, young woman, and she reached out. I think she touched him on the shoulder, and I thought Al almost jumped into the bushes. He just really got nervous.
Let me take you back for just a second, because I don't want to lose this point. What irritated me about the Kurt and Goldie story was that an editor has the ability to change your words and attribute words to you that you did not say. Legally, that seems untoward to me.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I think it happens a great deal in journalism. In magazine journalism stuff. It just and sometimes you just can't fight it. I mean, with the Playboy interview, I pretty much had my way, but there were times in the very beginning, my very first interview, even though Streisand was my first assignment, it took so long to do. I ended up doing Henry Winkler in between, and Henry Winkler got published first. And but when I got the galleys back, this is the first one. I'm dealing with my editor. It was like I had built up. I saw doing an interview as a 3-act play in a way. I don't know why, but as a drama, So you want to build up. You have someone maybe starting out high and then sinking low and then going back up. And at the end, what is your ending? And with Henry Winkler, he was the Fonz. He was the, George C. Scott said to him, kid, you better enjoy it because you may never get another part like it. Interesting, right? And So I ended it with, he went to Mardi Gras, and he was the king of Mardi Gras, and he's throwing out the doubloons and the necklaces. And I said, he's at the top of the world, And so I thought, this is a nice place to end this piece. And I did. So when I get the galleys back, the whole section is gone. And I'm going, what happened? And they said, well, the advertisements came in and, you measure by the inches now. So you have to take something out. And for a lot of editors, the easiest thing to do is to take it out from the bottom, rather than go through in the middles where you've made all your connections.
Why wouldn't they ask you what you thought ought to be hoisted?
Well, that's the thing. It was my first time.
Oh, okay.
So, you know what I mean? So they didn't know. And when I called and I started to say, look, this is what I did. I remember Barry Golson saying to me, I never thought of an interview like that. This is the editor of the Playboy interview. And he didn't see it the way I was seeing it. Isn't that something? So anyway, they respected me after that. Now, I think that's why I got the call to do Brando so quickly. After Streisand, because it took 9 months to get Streisand, and I didn't get paid until the end, so I was working for free, and who knew that was going to have an ending. But after that came out, she was on the cover. And it was the first celebrity ever to be on the cover of that magazine. And that was a huge deal because Barbara does not know this story. But what happened was she said to me, wouldn't there be something if I was on the cover of Playboy? And I looked at her, I said, you want to be on the cover? I didn't believe it, right? So she said, well, it would be something, wouldn't it? So I called Barry in New York and I said, you're not going to believe this. She wants to be on the cover. What do you think? Are you kidding? This is great. So then he flies out because he's going to meet with her to discuss the cover, right? Mm-hmm. So he flies out to New York, to LA, and I meet him at the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And he is like ashen. I said, what's the matter? Because we're going to see Barbara and John within the next half hour, let's say. He says, Heft doesn't want her on the cover. I said, wow. What, are you kidding me? He says, well, apparently she never goes to his parties. Right?
Oh,
and I'm going,
everyone is so insecure.
Did you see the Secrets of Playboy streaming series?
Yeah, I'm watching that, but that's really one-sided in a certain way. But I don't know for sure about a lot of the stuff. I can know what I've seen because I went to that mansion every Sunday to movie line.
I just wondered what your opinion was, and you just voiced it. So
have you watched Licorice Pizza? Because I'm wondering if that is an accurate portrayal of John Peters.
Oh yeah, John Peters is nuts. But let me just finish this story with
okay, go ahead,
please.
Where was I with this?
Hef didn't want her on the cover.
Oh, Hef didn't want her on the cover. Excuse me. And so I said, if we go and tell her that this interview that I've been doing for 7 or 8 months is over, it's over. She's never going to let it. He goes, what are we going to do? I said, this is what we're going to do. You will give her control of the picture. And because Hefner has control of the picture, he's the one who decides, right? Mm-hmm. So they said, but we'll tell her that she can pick the picture she wants, because Playboy's never done that, and we don't care if she doesn't like it. It won't happen, But even if she says no to it, the interview itself will appear, and that's all I was caring about.
Okay.
So the idea would be that so she agreed to that, and then they took the pictures and they built this big circle, and she's wearing a Superman t-shirt, and her legs, beautiful legs, she had bare legs, and it says, "What's a nice Jewish girl doing on the cover of Playboy?" And she also posed in the bunny suit, and they didn't use that. They went with this one. So anyway, this is
that's branding. You couldn't even put. I mean, that would be branding. You couldn't even put a dollar value on to have her in a bunny suit. They blew it with that one.
Because Dolly Parton did, and they put her on the cover with the bunny suit. Yeah. And so did Sally Field. I arranged for that one, and she was in the bunny suit. So anyway, so Barbara agreed to the picture, that she liked, or took the 3, and then they took it to Hefner, because they still didn't know if this was going to go. Mm-hmm. So we told Barbara that Hefner and Barbara have to agree together. That was the idea. Mm-hmm. So that way, no matter what Barbara said, if Hefner didn't want it, okay, it's not going to happen. Hefner looked at it and he liked it. Bingo! It's on the cover of Playboy. First celebrity cover.
All right, before we wrap up, I think we need to hear the Dolly Parton story, because I don't know if I've ever encountered a story quite like this one.
Okay, but I haven't even talked about my turquoise book.
Oh, we're gonna plug your books, of course.
And I got so much I want to tell you, but okay. Dolly Parton. What happened with Dolly was I flew off to Virginia and West Virginia to be in her entourage while she was performing. So I traveled on her bus. We stayed at motels. I always stayed in the room next to hers so we could talk after the show. 2, 3 in the morning we would be talking, and we developed a very nice rapport. And it got to the point that one time she called me. She was in town, so I said, okay, well, I'll go pick her up. I had a little Fiat. We drove down to the beach, and she tapped out with her fingernails the 9 to 5 song she was working on. She didn't have it all together. She was, what do you think? I thought that was pretty cool. And then we would walk down along the beach, and some big muscle guy I think he recognized her, but he saw the big boobs, the hair, the boobs, and the heels, and we're walking along Santa Monica Beach on the sidewalk, and he screamed out something, and Dolly grabbed my arm and said, "Oh, damn," she says, "and I left my gun in my bag in your car." And I said, "Your gun?" She says, "Oh yeah, I carry my gun all the time. I told in New York, I was with my sister, and I said, I'm going to turn you from a rooster to a hen if you don't get away from me." I told that story to Colin Higgins, who wrote 9 to 5, and put that in.
The lines in the movie, I know it. That's one of the great.
So anyway, with Dolly, so we were pretty close, and then she calls me up one day. Charlie Manson. Playboy had called me on a Friday or a Thursday and said, "We want you to think about something. We think we can get an interview with Charlie Manson. Before we ask anybody else, we want to know if you'd want to do it." And my instinct was, of course. But then I said, "Listen, where, some of that stuff happened with Sharon Tate and all is in the area you live in, the Hollywood Hills. And also, you just had a child, and it might be a little scary for you. So I said, all right, I'll think about it. So I tell my wife, and she said, well, what you do, it's your job. So I started calling different people. All the men I talked to, you got to do it. You got to do it. All the women I talked to, you're not doing that. You got to be crazy. You don't want to do that. Okay. So I'm leaning towards doing it on a Saturday night. I think I'm going to talk to my editor on Monday. And the phone rings like 7, 8 o'clock at night. It's Dolly Parton. No, so hey guy, how you doing? Just thinking about you. That's what she says. I said, gee, Dolly, isn't that interesting? You called. I said, I'm in the middle of making a decision. She says, what's your decision? I said, well, Playboy asked me, to interview Charles Manson. And what? She says, are you kidding? No, I'm not. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you this. If you see him, have you talked to him yet? I said, no. Have you? She says, if you see him, if you're near him, if you're anywhere in the vicinity of him, I never want to see you again. She says, that man is evil, that his evil will spread onto you, and I don't want that coming near me. She really believed this. Mm-hmm. So she said, you're a very sensitive man, and I know that he's the wrong person to be around. Well, in a sense, I caved. I said, well, Dolly, if it means that much to you, I said, I don't want to lose your friendship, so I didn't do it. Playboy never got to him in the end, but Dolly could never get it out of her mind. And I when I tried to see her a couple of times, I never heard from her. So one time I was asked by Good Housekeeping or McCall's or Cosmopolitan, one of those magazines, asked me to do a story on Dolly. So I left the message. She agrees. We meet near the Chateau Marmont at a French restaurant. And we had we talked for a long time. And then I said, Dolly, it was Manson, right? She says, yes. She says, just the fact that you were even considering it changed me about you, because I can't think of you without thinking of Charlie Manson, and I don't want to. So what can you do? Yeah. I mean, I think she's being honest with me, but in a sense, her loss as well, right? I mean, there's stories you share on both ends. But
it's interesting what scares people and what are people's triggers, because for me that feels like a trigger.
Yeah.
And, and so it sends her to a dark place and she just can't go there. So, I mean, we don't know what people's triggers are. I think we all have triggers,
Yes, absolutely. My sister's my trigger.
Your sister's your trigger.
Well, she was talking about.
I love her dearly. But.
Yes, of course.
I mean, some people might resent it because you're doing it for the commerce of doing an interview, and it'll be successful, and Playboy will make a lot of money off of it. That would be something to resent. But she was looking at it from like a voodoo aspect, like the bad mojo. That was a spiritual thing she was.
And the way that she said you're sensitive, that was a compliment to you, and that she was legit worried that some of this evil.
I take her absolutely at her word. I love her. I mean, I think she's extraordinary. She's a real genius. She's an amazing woman. And boy, I'll never forget the first time I met her. She was a bit Zoftic, right? This was the Dolly Parton that we sort of have in our minds when we were, when she was younger. So her waist was, I don't know, it was a little bit bigger than we see it now. Then when I saw her that last time, my goodness, she told me she had an 18-inch waist. I said, did you have ribs removed? I mean, it was like amazing. She still had the bosom, but she was as thin as anything. And her diet was nibbling. Aww. That's what she did. She didn't eat a lunch or dinner. She would nibble 5-6 times a day, but it was just, small little things that that was what she ate.
All right. So let's talk about what you've written recently and what you want to talk about and share with our audience.
Good. Yes. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Well, what happened is, with this pandemic, once it started, I don't know why, but I started thinking in fiction. I started writing stories. I had a dream about a spider that was in the bedroom, but the web was half the size of the bathroom. So you had to go under the door to get to it. And this guy in my dream goes under the door because he wants to take a picture of it. And he goes to take a picture, but what he forgets is any spider that would have built that web, it's got to be a very big spider. Mm-hmm. And so that big spider comes out from behind the toilet and bites him. His body freezes, right? And then he turns him into a cocoon. And what happens then? Okay, so that I wake up from that and I said, I got to find out what happened. So I write this story. And I make it about a guy, a narcissist, and why a narcissist? Well, because he had everything in the world. Everything came to him, whatever he did. And this is the guy who's going to get bitten by this spider. What's going to happen next? So I wrote this story. Then I had another dream about a carousel. And if somehow a man was buying a carousel at an auction, only it was a real live carousel. He's going to bring it to his home. What kind of home do you have a carousel fit in? A 50,000 square foot home, or, something like that. So this guy had to be very rich. So I came up with this story. As I start writing these things, they just flow. They just come. I couldn't believe it. So the first book was The Narcissist. My sister-in-law did that. I
love the title.
Yeah. The second book was Schemers, Dreamers, Cheaters, Believers. 35 stories. And this was all about, well, a lot of it has Trump stories in here. A lot of it has what's going on between the sexes. And
are they essays or fiction?
No, they're all short stories. Okay. They're all fiction. And the last one is Stuck. This is about a guy who wakes up one morning and he had touched a cactus or something, so he got those prickles out. But then the next one, there's more needles that are coming on, and he takes those out. And then a little later, more. He's growing these from the inside, right? So how did this happen? I didn't know, but what kind of story is this, right? He's a plant man. So I started writing these stories. Another one is, you ever do any coloring? Mm-hmm. I never colored. I mean, when I was a kid, but my proofreader sent me a coloring book, very, all triangulations and all this stuff. And with pastels and gels and pen pens. I said, what are you doing? I said, I don't have the time to do this. So I started doing it when watching TV. And the more I did it, it is very relaxing, very interesting. And you start getting into color. You know what I mean? You're starting to actually, like, you're painting in a way. It's because I'm not a good artist, but I can color. So I did a number of these things. Then I thought of a story. I said, what if a guy goes into a shop, he wants to buy his friend a present, and he says, do you have anything really unusual? So they come up, he says, well, this thing we have, it's a coloring book, but it's of every monster from every country, their big monster, which one, the golem from one country, whatever. So I looked this up, I started doing research. I got the top monster from each country, 16 of them or so. Now, what if it was Franz Kafka's book? It's never been colored, but it's, his name is his handwritten thing there. So now it's,
and cockroaches are all black anyway. So what are you going to color?
Cockroaches are black. So the guy gives him the thing, and they go off to a cabin. He's coloring, and when he starts to color, finishing one of these monsters, the monster appears.
Wow!
Oh, that's cool.
And and so I took this to all different levels. It was really amazing. So that was another story. So that all these stories happened. I thought about the pangolin who's was blamed. The bat or the pangolin caused the pandemic, right? The virus. So I said, I wrote a story as a pangolin. Don't blame me. Don't blame me. I didn't do it. It was like another one is about, I had a line called, I think I'm being poisoned. And the next line is, I think it's Vladimir Putin who's trying to poison me. and this was, last year. And so I got into, all the different kinds of people who were being poisoned, but this character developed, and it's a funny story, but that's what I've been doing. So I've been writing those things.
Wait, before we go, because we're way over time, but I want you to read us one. You also are a poet, and you've got a book of poems. Pick a shorter one about one of your people, and we'll close out with a poem.
Well, no, he has to do the poem and then his recommendation.
Oh, the recommendation,
right. Here's one about Luciano Pavarotti.
Okay.
They came like Gestapo to get Luciano Pavarotti out of my house. These suited record executives on album signing schedules. But Luciano liked the Chinese tacos, rice balls, and sushi. So told the worried eyes to let him swallow. The lines will only get longer. They paced, made calls, wondered what was he doing in this canyon house, muttering how hard it had been to find him. But Luciano liked the chicken salad and mini shrimp dumplings and stayed a while, entertained by my daughter's tricycle tricks. Before changing shirts, exposing Mushu layers of grand opera chest, finally following his Gestapo into the mile-long limo to face the music.
Oh, that's
so beautiful. And you're writing about him in your book is wonderful. Yeah. And people criticized him for being too pedestrian. But the truth is, I think he expanded the awareness of opera more than any other single person on the planet.
Oh, absolutely. Look, he had the greatest voice.
Yeah.
When I was researching Pavarotti, I got everybody. I got the records of everyone. Caruso, it's scratchy, it's old time. Mm-hmm. But no matter who you listen to, when you heard Pavarotti, you knew it immediately. Mm-hmm. And I would do that with friends. I said, bring them over. I said, here, let me put on this person, this person, this person, this person. I didn't tell them who it was. Who's the best? Everybody went with Pavarotti when they didn't know.
Okay, so we're recommending what people might want to enjoy. And what have you and your wife and your family been watching, reading, or listening to lately?
Okay, we watch Billions.
Yeah.
We watch Succession.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We watch My Brilliant Friend.
I haven't seen that yet.
Ozark,
yeah.
Shameless. We got into Shameless. We're into the 7th series. I don't know where I'm going to find the rest, but Shameless is pretty good. Righteous Gemstones is kind of amusing.
Mm-hmm.
David Letterman and Friends, it's good, and Comedians in Cars. Gary Seinfeld. That's good when you want to get that last 15 minutes. You don't want to go to bed yet. You put on one of those.
Absolutely,
that's a great selection.
And then 4 hours later, you're still watching them.
But I got to tell you,
yeah.
Go ahead. I just wanted to say in closing, Larry, that it's said that a full life is a life which is an accumulation of many experiences.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine anybody who's had a fuller life than you, both professionally and just personally. Really amazing stories, and 1 hour doesn't do it justice, but it was sure a pleasure to talk to you.
And when you talked earlier about, actors or performers, people that you interview, some of whom are only interested in talking about themselves, and then some of whom are very interested in hearing about the lives of other people. I think that's you, and that's a far more enriching life.
Well, thank you. You asked me about books, so we just want to quickly, this is a book I picked up called Down to the Crossroads. I just got it. And it's about the Meredith, Mississippi March in 1965. And I was there. I was on that march. I marched with Martin Luther King. And I didn't know that someone had written a book about it. So I'm looking in the book for, what it was about. So that's fun. That would have been nice to talk about. It's too late. And there's another writer that a lot of people don't know. I'm not sure if either of you would know, Thomas Bernhard. This is called Woodcutters. And this is Concrete. He was born in Holland, an Austrian writer, wrote in German, died in 1989, and I found these books very, very interesting and very, in a way that you haven't read a book like it. It's about a guy, woodcutters. He's going to a dinner party for an actor. The actor is late. All the people are there. He sits down in a chair and he has in a monologue about all these people and how much he hates everybody.
I like it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're reading it and he repeats things, as a kind of a repetition, not quite Gertrude Steinish, but he's moving it along. And I was like, I had a good time reading that. And that's why I got Concrete, which is another one that he did. So it's just interesting to be turned on to something you may not have known about.
Well, if anybody consumes all of Larry's suggestions, we want you to reach out to us because we're going to send you a reward.
Awesome. Those are awesome.
That's great. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so very much, Larry. What a great discussion.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Nice to meet you both.
Mm-hmm. I know we're going to get some great reviews for this show. This has been packed with so many wonderful stories. But if you'd like to go through our back catalog, go to Media Path Podcast. We have 88 episodes, and you'll pick one in there that broaches a topic that you're interested in. Please listen to it and then send us a review, because your reviews we can use to get more of an audience. And I just want to say, before we go, Weezy, we want to say a word about our friends in Lithuania. We have some listeners in Lithuania. And Lithuania is one of the 3 small Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, and their beautiful capital, Vilnius. They spent 20 years under Soviet rule, and there is a great worry in Lithuania right now about what Putin wants to do after the Ukraine against NATO, and it might have to do with the Baltics. They've got 2.8 million citizens on edge right now. If you live in Lithuania and your family is part of this anxiety, we want you to know that we love you and we send our hearts out to you. And we would love for you to communicate with us via our podcast, Media Path Podcast, and tell us how you're feeling over there, because we would love to share your story with our listeners.
Yeah, if you take a little movie and email it to us, email a little film to mediapathpodcast@gmail.com. We'll feature you on our podcast. And we would love for you to join us online on Instagram and Twitter. We are at MediaPathPod. And on Facebook, where our show is MediaPath Podcast. And our Facebook group is MediaPath with Fritz and Weezy Podcast Community. You can find full episodes with all kinds of bonus visual content on our YouTube channel, MediaPath Podcast. We would love to know what media you have been enjoying. You can contact us at our social media or email us at mediapathpodcast@gmail.com. We want to thank our wonderful, fascinating guest, Larry Grobel. Our team includes Dina Friedman, Francesco Demanda, John Maddox, Sharon Bellio, Bill Filipiak, Thomas Hubble, Mason Brown, and you. Our theme music is by me and John Maddox. I am Louise Palanker here with Fritz Coleman, and we will see you along the media path. That was so great.
That was amazing, Larry. We could have done 2 hours at least.
Yeah, I know.
So we'll put all the links in our show notes so everybody can just click and find everything that you've been talking about.